scratching the rubber. When we were younger,
like my sophomore year of high school, we were night owls during the summer, typically having a house full of our friends on any given day. We used to play this game that,
for some reason, we called Spy as kids.
and we were trying to explain it to some of our friends that happened to be over that night. I'll try to explain it as
best as I can without it sounding ridiculous.
But basically, we grew up next to a cemetery, and if you walked all the way through the cemetery, you could cross the railroad tracks and end up at the city park. The goal of the game was to make it from our house, through the cemetery, to the park, play around on the playscape they had, and make it all the way back home without the police catching us or telling us we needed to get home because we were violating curfew. We convinced our dad to go along with us one night. We went all out, dressed all in black to make hiding easier should the cops decide to spotlight the areas. We knew the area like the back of our hands because we grew up roaming them ever since we could walk. It was one of the summer months.
I honestly can't tell you which one, but I would guess July fits
the timeline better if I had to guess. We'd made it through the cemetery into the park,
which was amazing considering we had a decent amount of people with
us this particular night. It was myself, my sister, my dad, my girlfriend at the time, my cousin, and a friend of mine
from high school.
We organized a game of hide and seek and had been playing for around a half an hour when something happened that I really have never been able to explain, and I'm not the only one who saw it happen. I wasn't seeking. I believe it was my dad. But that memory is hazy when it comes to that. My sister thinks it was my dad as well, but we can't confirm that because of what happened during this one round. I was hiding tucked up under one of the higher levels of the playscape, and I noticed someone hiding underneath the trampoline bridge.
I'm not sure if
that's actually what it's called, but it's a piece of rubber stretched out across two wooden platforms that offers no real bouncing power but is fun to run across. I thought it was my cousin. She was just laying there scratching on the bottom of the piece of rubber really slow and weird, and it was making a nasty scraping sound that was sure to give away her hiding spot, and likely give away mine as well. I told her to knock it off and she just ignored me. I remember thinking that her hands looked really big and long and weird, but attributed it to the darkness and weird shadows. I couldn't really see anything but the silhouette of her laying there. It was dark and there weren't any lights in the park over the playscape area. I could hear whoever was seeking finding everyone else, including hearing my cousin scream when she was found on the other side of me, away from where I thought she had been hiding. I started to realize that I was the only left that hadn't been found, and I could hear everyone else talking. But the person under the rubber bridge hadn't been found yet, because the seeker hadn't been over by where I was hiding yet. I came to the slow,
horrible realization that whoever was lying underneath and scratching at the rubber
was a complete stranger. When I looked back at where they'd been laying in the wood chips, just scratching, they were gone, and I got scared enough that I came out of my spot and gave up on the game. I remember that it was my dad seeking for sure now, because he said, "I thought you were hiding over underneath the rubber bridge, but when I circled back around you were gone."
Well,
as it turns out, all of us had at one point seen whoever or whatever this thing was, while we were trying to find our hiding places, because we all described it the same way. Just a weird silhouette scratching at the underside of this rubber bridge. Nobody had gotten a better look at it, but it was just something that we all saw. This was probably close to 18 years ago now at this point, but we all still bring it up and talk about it often. That particular group of friends saw a lot of weird things and experienced a hell of a lot of crazy events together.
We're all adults now with
our own lives, and some of us have had falling outs at this point. But I'll never forget those couple of summers when everything just felt great in spite of experiencing some fairly scary things together. Whenever I go to my parents', I like to walk around the cemetery because it reminds me of all the crazy stuff that we got into together. I think about that thing scratching the rubber bridge every time I go to a park that has one of those. And with 2 kids of my own now, that's been more often these days. This happened in the mid-Michigan area around 04-06 time frame. Anyone else ever experience anything like this? Sorry that this one wasn't super creepy or anything. I usually write fiction horror based on experiences, so telling them straightforward is harder than anticipated. I've just been branching out lately, trying to find new inspirations through interactions.